Hey everyone, it's me. I'm back. All right, so we're gonna try this again. So I'm Terry Vanover, and we're gonna be talking about money and divorce and how to navigate through divorce the best you can, right? And save that money, save that time, all that good stuff. So we have a guest today, Mariah Carey Pleasant. She's phenomenal. Okay, she hosts the podcast of Split Ready. She is a mediator and she is a certified divorce financial planner. So she has a lot going on for us. So she's going to offer some wisdom and tips to help us through divorce so that we can get through divorce the best we can. Okay, we've got our team is hopping on. It's been a little bit of a, I had to kind of start over because I was excited that I finally got my laptop version working for Facebook Live for the past few weeks. It hasn't been working for me. There's been a glitch in my camera and I finally got it working, but it won't work to do a Facebook Live and invite someone to join with me. So it's like, nice. So we're on take two. So we're waiting on Mariah to join us today and we're really super excited. I'm really excited because if y'all haven't heard my story, I'm a divorce strategist, and the main reason I became a divorce strategist was to help people avoid divorce, because so many divorces are avoidable if you get help early on in the marriage, right? But B, to also know what your options are when you're going through divorce, because I was just so overwhelmed. I was separated, I was homeless, I got hit by a van while riding my bike, I lost my mom through all that, and I was just so overwhelmed. I made so many mistakes that affected me in so many ways. The emotions that you're going through right now affect you when you're going through divorce. So I consider myself a pretty resourceful, smart cookie. But when I look back at my divorce, I go, oh my God, I don't even know who that lady was. Just did not know what I was doing. So overwrought with emotions and grief and anger and despair that I just didn't know what I was doing. So Mariah's here, and I'm going to see if I can add her on. I'm trying to see if I can add her on. This is crazy, so maybe it wasn't. I see you're here. Candace, am I doing something wrong here? Because I can bring Russell Wayne. It says here Russell Wayne can come on camera with me, but I'm not sure why I can't bring Mariah. She's here with us, so I want her to join us. Okay. This is crazy, y'all. This shouldn't be this difficult. I would have done a whole Zoom thing if I had known. This should have just been easy. Pop on, pop off, ask your questions. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay, let's see. Candace, do you know how we can get Mariah on the camera with me other than she's here? So I don't understand why it's not working. It says I can invite you to watch, but it doesn't say how to invite you on. Mariah, is there a way that you can ask to be on to join me maybe? Because I'm not seeing how to invite you on. We're having a little technical difficulty. Yes, I see Mariah's here, John is here, Candace is here, but I'm not seeing any, don't see how to bring her on. It's so weird. It's letting me bring another member on, but it's not letting me bring Mariah on. Ooh, well, I did something with the lighting there. That's better. Let's just touch some buttons. All right. Okay, let's see. I added Mariah. Mariah, do you see? Is there a possibility? Hey!
So I can only join on my phone.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now we know.
So now I have to
You
hold.
know, it used to be that way a couple of years ago, and I thought they would have fixed that. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I have to. And I don't have any apparatus here in the office to hook up my phone, so I'll be holding you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Next time we'll know. If we have to redo it, we'll do it. No biggie. So, Mariah, did you have tell us first about your background and, what you do, why you got into it, and why you're here.
I will. I'm going to try and set you down too and see if I can make this work a little bit. You're going to see my lighting, but that's about it. So I am a certified financial planner, a certified divorce financial analyst. I used to be licensed as a financial advisor. I've let that go as I've been focusing on mediation and divorces full time. So my background is financial. Most of my practice, about 60% is mediation. The other 40% is doing the numbers, right? Whether that's coming in and helping one person in a divorce really understand the financial picture, or doing like forensic accounting light to help people understand where the money is going. Or working in collaborative divorces as a financial neutral. So kind of a mix between both.
Yeah, I think people understand that there's options to traditional litigated divorce. So, can you talk a little bit about some options?
Absolutely. I think what people need to understand is every divorce is different, right? We've probably all been to a million weddings in our lifetime, and they all have a different feel and a different vibe, and the couple decides to budget their money differently, whether it's most important to have, really good food or a really great band. Divorce isn't that different. You have to figure out, divorce is going to cost you a certain amount of money. It just is. How big is your budget, first of all, right? It's not unlimited. And where is your focus? You really want to make sure that you pay a lot of attention to your parenting plan. Do you need to spend some extra time going into a deep dive on the finances? Do you need to hire the best attorney in town because you guys are going to duke it out for a couple of years and there's nothing you can do about that? So one of the questions that someone posted on the Facebook page was, what's the biggest pitfalls that people make when they're going through a divorce? Financial pitfalls. And number one is assuming that you need a long, litigated, high-dollar divorce, because not everybody does.
Nope. No, that is a huge assumption that a lot of people make, and it's so false. You're exactly right. Good. I'm glad you picked up on that, because that was going to be my question. Like, what's the biggest financial mistake that people make? And you're right. They just make these assumptions that it's going to be this traditional litigated, long divorce, hire the most expensive attorney. Very good. Okay. I love your analogy too of the wedding. Like, oh, divorce is like a wedding. Yeah. If you think about that, I think we get stuck in our ways. So let's see. There have been a couple of questions regarding retirement and pensions. What do people need to think about when it comes to retirement pensions?
I think the first thing that people have to understand is that when you're splitting assets, it doesn't mean that you have to split every asset. There can be a lot of horse trading that goes on where one person takes one, the other person takes another, because to split retirement assets can get complicated and expensive in and of itself. And so it's really important, whether you use a financial planner or you have the ability to sit down and do it yourselves, or the attorneys can help. Some attorneys are better with finances than others, to get a full picture of the finances and realize that not all assets are created equal as well. So if there's a $100,000 CD and there's a $100,000 401k, the dollar amount is the same. The tax treatment, the potential earnings, the implications if you want to spend it are not the same. So to really understand the big picture is really, really important.
I agree with you. You're not thinking, a lot of times people people just are not thinking long term or seeing the big picture, because as you know, like we've been through divorce, like you're just in survival mode. You're just thinking day to day, how can I just get through this, or how can I get this? For some people, it's like, I just want to get this divorce over as quickly as I can. So you're right, you're not seeing the big picture, and someone else in the divorce may understand the tax, penalties and things that maybe you're not even thinking of. Having the right team and having the right people so that you're asking the right questions. I think that's a big part of this, is like making sure you have the right resources and you're asking the right questions through this. Like you said, they're two different things and have the same quote unquote value, but you might understand the implications that go along splitting those things. So that's great. I love that. Okay.
Also, don't rush, right? So I think that when you hire an attorney, you automatically think they're in charge, and they're not. You are in charge.
Yes, that's like one of my things. Like, I want to help you take control of this process, and that's the biggest myth people think. Like, it is. It's overwhelming, and the average person doesn't know about the legal process. And I'm not saying I'm a legal, expert either, but like, are you asking the right questions? Are you looking long term? Are you thinking about the big picture versus just the day-to-day stuff? You're right. I think it's a difficult process and people just want it over with, so yeah, they think the attorney's in charge and the attorney's waiting for you to tell them what to do.
And there's that saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't ask every question that you have of your attorney, they may not know the issues that are kicking around in your head. They have multiple cases going on. And so an example would be, I had a client that thought that the money in the health savings account that they had would be spent on the kids. It wasn't in the writing of the agreement. It was just kind of how they had always done it. But she never brought it up because she just assumed that's how health savings accounts worked. And then when it all shook out, it was $5,000 that was on one side of the line, not the other, that she just didn't understand because she didn't bring it up. And it could have been. So there really is no dumb question when you're going through this. And even if it is, so what? It's your life. You have to understand what you're doing moving forward.
Yeah. Another great question that came up is, what about someone who's struggling with the IRS? How does that, or what do people need to think about if the IRS is involved or there's tax issues? What do people need to think about?
So the question I think that was posed was, how does he shelter his wife from some of his tax burden, which is wonderful and nice. And
you don't see that often. So
correct. There are ways to do it. There's innocent spouse and injured spouse IRS rules, but they're pretty specific. They've got a 2-year look back, and should have known still counts for something. So there has to be enough material reason that she wouldn't have known that there were tax implications, and she has to be able to somewhat prove that. So I would, depending on the burden, right? Like if it's a smaller tax burden, you may not get your bang for your buck by hiring a tax attorney. If we're talking a large tax burden, it might make sense to consult with someone specifically in the tax realm who works with the IRS day in and day out, because again, that's what they do. I can tell you what form number it is, but that doesn't tell you when to apply it or how to use it, and if there's other loopholes that you can exploit.
So, make sure you talk to the right people. That it's better to cover yourself and ask more questions and ask the right people than it is to just guess or find out later you did the wrong thing. That's, I think, you tell me, where do people make a lot of financial mistakes? Is they decide to do something and then find out later they should have done something different, and they have to go back and redo something. See that often?
I do. I think the two biggest mistakes that people make are assuming what they know is true right? We've all heard our stories from our friends' divorces, and that creates a narrative in our head of what we think is true of divorce. It may or may not be. So start from scratch. Go all the way to the beginning of your finances and the beginning of, the issues that you need to go through. I say this probably every day. Nobody knows what's better for your family. And I still consider divorced parents with kids a family. It's just restructured. Nobody knows what's better for your family better than you and your spouse or ex-spouse. You know the details. And to figure out the best way to move forward is on the responsibility is really yours, but you have to take it. The other big mistake that people make, I think, is either moving too fast, like I just want to get this over with, and so they agree to anything, or moving too slow and being too pragmatic and letting they don't need to.
Yeah. So Paul has a question. What happens if we've asked an attorney about various aspects in periphery to the immediate and they're not paying attention to that stuff? I sometimes wonder if he's trying to get as much money for himself from my spouse in billable hours.
You're breaking up a little. Let me see if I can see no, I can't see the
question.
I don't see it. Okay. Well, say that one more time for me.
What asked an attorney about various aspects in periphery to the immediate financial, health, diary, etc., and they're not paying attention to that stuff. I sometimes wonder if he's trying to get as much money, but for himself from my spouse in billable hours. I really don't know that I'm being paid attention to.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's a common feeling. Divorce attorneys have multiple cases. They prioritize sometimes the ones that are the most on fire at the time. I think it's important to document all of your correspondence. So if you're asking specific questions, make sure that you follow that up, or sometimes I prefer to have it done in the first place via email. An email is succinct, it's precise, and it takes them, 4 minutes to read it. A phone call is going to start off with, well, how are you doing? The judge said this, and you're going to get off on a 15-minute phone call tangent of stuff that isn't necessarily relevant, but you're paying for every minute. So if you have specific financial questions, put them in a specific financial email, and then you can reference that email and keep them on task. I know it's harder for some than others, but you are employing that attorney. They work for you. So be assertive, be persistent, be whatever you need to be to make sure that your questions are getting answered.
Yeah, about taking control of the process. Yep. I think you're right. So many people think that the attorney is in control and they're going to just take care of you, and you have to be assertive and you have to take control of the process.
Yeah, it's yours to live with.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and you want to know that you're making the best decisions at the time, because it's going to affect you long term. So you don't want to leave any stone unturned or look back on your divorce. Oh, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd been more assertive, or I wish I'd taken more time. Da, 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 da. Can the court decide on their own if spousal support must be provided if my wife does not want it?
So the actual answer is yes. The real answer, and here's the disclaimer that applies to everything I say, I'm not an attorney, I don't give legal advice, I'm not going to give you specific financial advice unless we get to know each other and engage. But the real answer to that is if you come to the courts with a reasonable agreement that you and your spouse have both crafted through full disclosure, through due process of considering the outcomes, I don't know of any cases where the judge will just randomly be like, nope, maintenance is awarded. I'm sure it's happened. I don't know of any. So.
Yeah, I think, again, a judge, their job is to look through the stuff, make sure that it's, you know, as fair as they seem. So, but yeah, I mean, it's possible, but if, you know, the two parties have come to an agreement and there's other factors that you've decided to do, yeah, yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Michael. But if you feel that you guys have good faith, come to an agreement, you know, if mostly judges they want you to make these decisions for yourself because it's your life. So if you can come to a reasonable agreement, unless they see something that's like where they feel something is blatantly unfair or blatantly something off, they're going to question it. But
yeah, they may call you up and make sure that you understand what you're agreeing to.
yes.
They may do that. And where they're not as flexible is when it comes to child support and kids. The truth of the matter is adults are adults and they get themselves into marriages and they get themselves out, and the courts don't really care as much about that as they do to making sure kids are protected, cared for, have a good quality of living at both houses. So if she's agreeing to no alimony and child support is minimal and she doesn't have a job and there's 3 kids, and how is that household going to be supported? I could see that potentially becoming an issue. If both people work and both people are, you know, supporting parents and seeing their kids, they're most of the time gonna let you do what makes sense for your family.
Yeah. We have time for just one or two more questions. While we're waiting for some of those questions to come in, anything else you want to share with us, Mariah? How can we contact you? Anything about any suggestions or things you want to talk about?
Sure. My contact information is probably the easiest through the website. It's Keystone Mediation. I would say if anyone's thinking about divorce and not there yet, to definitely reach out to a mediator or a financial professional first. It can save you thousands. Average divorce in this country is about $20,000. I've seen them go with extra zeros to that, just in court cases. Average mediated course is about $5,000 to $7,000. So look at your different potential avenues to get divorced before you are 2 years in, would be my best advice. It doesn't always work. Sometimes, absolutely, it has to go the more traditional route, but explore your options. I saw something about businesses, and someone had asked a question too about, can we still work in the family business together after a divorce? You can. That's what I think people fail to realize when they're going through the process. You can do whatever you want within the realm of the law. If it makes sense for both of you to continue to work in the family business and you can get along, absolutely. And some people are better as friends than they are as a married couple. That happens all the time. If it's going to be horrible every day at work, then we got to figure out a way for someone to buy someone else out.
Okay, here's what's the best strategy for handling disparate income in Illinois, married over 10 years?
I'm not sure what handling it means. Typically, there will be some spousal maintenance awarded. I think that another place where people get stuck is using the calculators. There's a calculator for maintenance in Indiana. There's a calculator for child support in Indiana. Sometimes it makes sense to sit down and do the budget. What does each household need? Who provides what to that house? Maybe there needs to be, a couple $100 extra a month in child support, but maintenance isn't really important because it's, only while the kids are young that this is important. Sit down and really look at cash flow, really look at what's coming in and what's going out and who has reserves and who doesn't and how is that going to work. And maybe come to your own numbers and see if that's in line with the suggestions, but then you know how you got there and you know why you're there.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions anyone want to give to Mariah? Or Mariah, do you want to speak to anything you want to talk about while we're waiting for some questions to come in?
I'm a peacemaker at heart. I do what I do because I think divorce is hard enough. It doesn't need to be disastrous to the family resources as well. And very few people have ever looked back on their divorce and said, God, I wish I was more of a jerk. Or I wish I had, spent more time and money in court. So if you can take the high road, as hard as it is, I think you'll be grateful to yourself for doing that later on.
Yeah. You want to know one of my mottos is the same thing, Mariah. Like, I want you to look back and think to yourself, I was the best that I could be during the darkest time of my life,
Yep.
So that you look back not feeling full of regrets and feeling like, you've made an already bad situation worse. Yeah. I'm seeing a great, what would you, or do you have anything that you want to talk about as far as mortgage, anything that people need to think about when they're thinking about mortgage and their loans and things like that, their home?
Absolutely. So the family home is often one of the most expensive investments that a couple has. So it's really important to give that its due diligence. A million years ago, when I first got into this business, I saw a lot of cases where one spouse was keeping the family home and the other spouse was keeping the pension, and they kind of thought that was equal. And the person who had the home couldn't afford it. The person who had the pension didn't get to have it for another 25 years. And so the assets weren't the same. There was no cash flow analysis. There was no thought process given to, can the person who kept the home actually refinance the other person off of it? A lot of people think that because the divorce decree says you have to, that the bank will accommodate you. The court does not hold any power over the banks. The banks will do what makes sense for them financially. So get your ducks in a row before the divorce is final. Make sure that you can refinance. Make sure that you have a plan to refinance. Make sure that if your divorce is going on and on and on and on, if you want maintenance or child support counted towards one spouse's income for refinancing purposes, it has to go into a separate account for at least 6 months in only their name and not in your name. And there's so many specifics to it that you need to reach out to someone who's got lending experience in the divorce arena just to get that information. And there's a couple really good ones who do just consults by the hour. You don't even have to do your refinance through them. Get your ducks in a row with that as well.
Okay.
I know that was a ton of information.
That is good information, but you're right. That was probably my biggest financial mistake that I made in my divorce of the home, and not being at all educated about the long-term effects of the home and how to get a loan. It was bad. So everything Mariah says is like correct. And I think, to be honest, Mariah, in the work that I see, it's oftentimes the women have a sentimental attachment to the home, or they want to keep it for their children, and so it's helping people to kind of look at it from a realistic standpoint, and what are the long-term consequences and how you can get through. So that's great information. I think this is a great question, and we'll stop after this because we're going to hop into our other group now that we've got our phone up. John is asking, I think this is great. Is mediation appropriate if the other partner is not cooperative, or when is mediation? When is it a good time to mediate? When is it not? So
the best time, in my opinion, for mediation is before you've done anything else. Start with mediation. Figure out even if you only get a partial agreement in mediation, figure out what you can agree on beforehand. Get a good feel for the full picture beforehand. And so to answer your question, it depends on what you mean by uncooperative. Usually, one person is ready for the divorce and one person isn't. If that person is just not ready and needs more time, or needs to slow the process a little, or understand the process a little, mediation is absolutely still a viable option. Sometimes it's even a better option because then they feel as though they have some control in the matter, as opposed to giving everything up to the attorneys and the soon-to-be ex-spouse, and it's a whirlwind of, I don't know what I'm doing. And it enables people to really advocate for themselves, and sometimes there's a lot of strength in that.
Yeah.
But people do have to come to the table willing to be transparent and willing to do some hard work. So unwilling, it'll still work. Absolutely uncooperative, it might not.
But you know, it is amazing how a good mediator can turn things around and can help, you know, reframe things, show the other party, and like you said, it's because the process is very different. You know, people feel more in control and they feel like they more can advocate for themselves. It's a less disempowering process, you know.
If people get to my office, if I can get both people here, and so my mediations are always with both people present. I think if you're going to sit together on the soccer sidelines together at some point, then you can come to the table here and do this hard work as well. If I can get both people here, 98% of the time it works.
Good. Yeah. I mean, it is shocking, like mediators are miracle workers. All right, so Mariah, let's share your contact information again, and you know how people can get in touch with you. I'm already seeing on the Facebook group people like they want to call you, they want to reach out to you. So what do we do?
KeystoneMediation.com, or you can call my direct line here at the office is 219-440-7299. I am my primary office is in Northwest Indiana, but I work all over Chicagoland, and I do a lot via Zoom for mediation, believe it or not. Even before COVID, we were moving a lot towards online mediation. So geography is not an issue.
Yeah, I all over the world, and it's amazing to help people not be limited by our geography. So, well, thank you so much. We're gonna hop off, y'all, and we're gonna jump onto the other group and see if there's any questions there. And there'll be a replay, and we'll put Candace is gonna put your contact information in our group, Mariah. So expect some phone calls, okay?
Sounds good. And I'll go back to see if there's any questions that we missed and see if I can put some answers on the Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.